Good evening, and we are live, but we're going to bring in some extra channels today. Do not adjust your sets. I am not Andrew Moore. My name is Scott Kennedy, and we're going to bring in a couple of my channels on Facebook and YouTube as well. I'm going to be guest hosting the Horseshoe Huddle. Boy, that's a mouthful. The Horseshoe Huddle podcast live with my friend Drake Wally here. And welcome in, everybody. My name is Scott Kennedy, and like I said just a moment ago, do not adjust your set. I am not Andrew Moore. I am a guest host for the Horseshoe Huddle podcast tonight. You can find me on most social media channels at Scout Kennedy. That's a play on words. I was director of scouting at scout.com for a good portion of my lifetime and followed a lot of these guys up through high school and college. And then the last 2 years, I've really done more NFL draft. So I've been to the Senior Bowl the last 2 years. I'm going to the Shrine Bowl and Senior Bowl this year. Really enjoy the process of team building. And I've had a pretty close eye on the Colts this year, and I'm looking forward to talking Indianapolis Colts with my friend Drake and the rest of y'all tonight. So, Drake, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing really good. It's definitely been a rocky year, a bunch of ups and downs, and now we have more change, which seems to never stop. So, other than that, man, it's been a good Christmas season. I'm looking forward to the weekend. So, good stuff.
Well, you know what's worse than being bad is being bad and boring. And you cannot say that about the Indianapolis Colts this year. That's for sure. They have been anything but boring, even if they have been at times really bad and unfortunately sometimes really embarrassing as well. So the big news of the week, I think, is we kind of let this thing breathe. And, do us a favor as you're coming in. I see Stats Matt coming in on YouTube. Hit that like button. It helps the algorithm send their little fingers out into the internet and let more Colts fans come and find us. So hit that like button as you come in on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter if you're watching it. It's a big help to us. But the big news, Drake, was Matt Ryan getting benched again. This time for a different quarterback. It didn't work so well when Sam Ehlinger came in, and he went 0-2, and predictably in his first NFL appearance looked shaky. Frank Reich gets fired. I'm rehashing history here. Matt Ryan's back at the helm. Good, exciting win against the Raiders. 3 straight losses, including that loss last week. And all of a sudden, there's a change again. Nick Foles and Coach Saturday described or explained why he made that change. We got that video for you here real quick.
Yeah, it just didn't feel like we made enough plays offensively. It's no secret we haven't converted in the red zone. And ultimately you got to make plays in the NFL, and we're not making nearly enough explosive plays, and not making plays in the red zone. And again, I've said this before, this is not all on Matt, right? I mean, this is us entirely on an offensive perspective, and but that, ultimately that leads into it, and so I feel like Nick will give us a better chance to go win these last 3 games, and that's why we're headed that way.
All right, Drake, what was your reaction to this move and Jeff Saturday's comments about why he is going to Nick Foles over Matt Ryan, and frankly, as he's done since he's been here, over Sam Ehlinger?
Well, I've answered this. There's been a bunch of people that have commented on articles of mine and stuff, and my take is, look, Jeff Saturday has made it very clear he is gunning for the head coaching position, and the best chance right now. I mean, Matt Ryan, I think he's completely cooked. I hate to say it, mad respect to the guy. You got to be realistic, though. He's very, very scared. He's cooked. Ehlinger, he's a little bit green, might not give you the chance to win. Foles has been there. He's been in a Super Bowl, won it. I know he's kind of underperformed as a starter with the Bears, with the Jags. He's got a lot of money in his bank with not a lot to show for it. So we'll see. But right now, I think that if you're looking to win, probably going to give you the best chance, even if they're trying to stretch the field and his game is a little more intermediate.
Yeah, and part of that interview that he gave, the press video availability, is what Stats Matt comes in and says. He's like Saturday said, the safeties are playing way down, usually within 7 yards. He goes, everybody watches all 22. You can see it. And that's a product of play calling in Ryan's arm. Foles' arm can't be any worse. And that's the thing is, you look through, you're talking about the big play capability. You want to get Alec Pierce stretching the field and Michael Pittman stretching the field and getting those guys involved. And, Matt Ryan doesn't seem to have the arm strength to get the ball downfield to do that. But Nick Foles historically hasn't been a guy that has gone for a lot of big plays in his career either. He's, I think I didn't realize he was as big as he is.
Yeah.
He's listed in Pro Football Reference at 6'6", 260. I'm like, okay, what do the Colts list him at? And it was 245. I'm like, all right, wouldn't have minded seeing him on a 4th and inches quarterback sneak.
Yeah.
But, do you think that he'll have the ability to push the ball down the field and be a little more greedy? Or do you think, it's not going to make that big a difference? One, it's his first start in forever. And two, the offensive line and play calling is really what's ailing this team.
Well, going right back to what you said, he's not historically a big play guy. He's more of a calculated, low risk, kind of move the ball intermediate. That's his big thing. Well, with the constant changes that have happened, with a still pretty green, he'll be green for another season if he gets the job. Jeff Saturday, you've got Parks Frazier, who is also a product of this Irsay decision because it goes in a chain. He chose Saturday, who chose Frazier, who was very mundane with his play calling. And you've got, kind of like you said, now a new factor in Nick Foles it's not just his first start. It's his first start this season and in a while and in a long time. And he's gone through injuries and everything. So it's going to be interesting if they can get him to move the ball down the field. But I think it's going to be more of a product on the receivers to make that happen than it is him getting the ball down the field.
Yeah, the offensive line for me, I mentioned that bad and boring football is absolutely the worst. And the Indianapolis Colts have not been boring, even if they have been bad. But what's really bad for a team is when you're bad and expensive. That is a killer blow. Bad and cheap, okay, at least you're not hurting the team. But right now, the offensive line has not been very good, and it's the most expensive unit in the NFL. That is a bad combination. How much of this do you think the struggles are been placed on the shuffling around the offensive line, the replacing of a key player here or there? And then you're only as strong as your weakest link. And I feel like you get somebody like Quentin Nelson, if he's not sure about the guy next to him, it affects his play. So it's almost like a bad apple when you're talking about a break in the chain.
Yeah, well, to go back to the start of the year, you say Matt Pryor's the guy. Well, clearly he's not. He's essentially just, he's not even there. When he's on the field, it's a guy. It's 4 linemen against 5 it's 4 linemen on the field when Matt Pryor's out there. That's not being mean. It's just a fact. Now you have Nelson, who has to try to account for someone potentially getting through on his left side. That's going to make blocking even worse for him. And then you've got Ryan Kelly on his right. You got a struggling Danny Pinter. You got a struggling Will Fries. Well, then you've got Smith on his left. You have the same thing. So the reason they were so good last year is because they understood everything as a unit. They played together for a while. You take away 2 key pieces like that, and it definitely showed. And I think that Nick Foles, mad respect to him. He defeated Tom Brady, one of only 2 men to do so in the big game. But as a regular starter, his numbers really aren't that impressive, and he doesn't move really any better than Matt Ryan. So it's going to be, the line's going to have to step up. They're going to have to step up and block for him, allow him to get the ball downfield.
There's a reason why he hasn't been a regular starter. I think if I need a guy to come in and do a single game, Jesse Fraley comes in. He says, "Why do I not see a Unitas jersey on the back wall?" Yeah, there we go. Jesse's coming in. One of our Broncos fans. Appreciate you coming in. Like I said, I do a lot of different things with the NFL draft, and I typically have followers from lots of different teams. One of the phrases I use all the time is I end up rooting for the names on the back of the jersey more than the names on the front of the jersey. So, as long as people, I enjoy hearing different perspectives. So Jesse, welcome in. But he's saying you need a Johnny Unitas jersey.
I definitely need to get some, get some actual history back here. A lot of this stuff is a little too new. We need to get some foundation blocks back there,
Statsmat asked early on, why should the Colts take Levis? We're going to close with a little draft talk on here because frankly, the Indianapolis Colts are getting linked with every quarterback who's taken a snap in the last few years and in the last few weeks. I want to talk about that just a little bit. And there's a reason for that too.
Yeah.
You're talking about the offensive line play. Now, I watch the Atlanta Falcons pretty closely, and the detractors of Matt Ryan, and if you're in one place long enough and don't win the big one, you're going to have a lot of detractors, whether it's your fault or not. We could get into that on another pod. In fact, I have. But the detractors are going to say that the offensive line in Atlanta has played better immediately when Matt Ryan was gone, because with Marcus Mariota, you had more of a running threat. The Atlanta Falcons changed one guy, a reserve right tackle, moved to left guard named Elijah Wilkinson. The rest was pretty much the same, and they have improved massively in a single year when they're doing more dominating run blocking. We saw what this team could do run blocking last year, but was there more respect for Carson Wentz's arm and ability to beat you deep? And is Matt Ryan part of the problem? Could that be how this team starts running the ball better with Nick Foles?
Well, yes, actually, Carson Wentz was underrated in two regards. He resembled his physique was almost the same as Andrew Luck's. He could move, not like lightning speed, but he knew when to get out of the pocket, and he was a massive human being to bring down. So believe it or not, you're not going to be, you might think a little bit before you hit him. So there was the threat of the feet. Then he could actually jack that ball downfield about as far as he wanted to, really. So there was the threat of stretching the field. And then you had Taylor and efficient run blocking that could set up play action, which brought you that, I think, 27 touchdowns to 7 interceptions ratio. I mean, when you got Taylor there, those linebackers, they are going to bite, and they're going to bite hard to stop him. So you fake it, you're going to get some open receivers. So I think that Foles is just not that mobile. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's something that maybe I just haven't seen enough of Nick Foles, which would, it's because he's a backup. But if he can move a little bit,
for it by removing Jonathan Taylor from the equation too.
Yeah.
So you're going into this wondering.
Good point.
How is this team going to win? How is this team going to win this game? It's like, yes, I still don't have to respect the run, so now I can blitz your eyeballs out and see if you can pick those up, man up on a couple of receivers, drop back into cover. I can drop 8 into coverage. I don't have to worry about the run, and see if you can pick me apart and just keep everything in front of me and play super safe, which we've seen a lot of. And the crazy thing for me, going back to Matt Ryan one final time, mm-hmm. was, it probably won't be the final time. Let me rephrase. Again, is the amount of fumbles is insane. I mean, this guy's been hit a lot. I mean, the Atlanta Falcons line hasn't been good for a long time. He's been beat to hell and back for the last 3 seasons. But he wasn't putting the ball on the ground every third time he was being hit. That's what was something that has been crazy to me. So can you just play Iceman, against the Colts? And you know what? I'm going to sit back. I'm going to let you make a mistake. Or can Nick Foles, this running game, a better passing quarterback, a better threat downfield, can it loosen it up stuff where they can go into LA and get an improbable win against the Chargers?
Well, the good thing is the Chargers defense. I mean, look, the Colts offense has underperformed on a level of epic proportions, but the Chargers defense is very middle of the road. Without Bosa, they have not been that as big of a threat as a lot of people expected. So there's a chance they could make it happen.
And if Derwin James is out another day, the injury bug really hit the Chargers hard out in the AFC West.
Yes, it did.
And Derwin James hasn't played in a couple of weeks. He was limited in practice today, mm-hmm. And we'll see if he goes. Or am I banking I can rest him another week, take Christmas off, and we're going to make the playoffs, and I need you healthy against the Colts.
There you go.
Against the Colts, who are playing Nick Foles, no Jonathan Taylor, no Shaq Leonard, who's all season. We know that part. But they're just not playing very well. They've lost 3 in a row, and it's going to be interesting to me. And Andrew comes in. Appreciate you, Andrew Moore. Welcome in. I'm glad I could. Like I said, I'm not Andrew. This is Andrew down here.
There it is. Right there.
Comment. He says the threat of stretching the field with Foles because of the better arm should be there. Question is, will Parks Frazier call some deep shots?
The X factor.
Yes, and Stats Matt's talking about he's talking about some of the all-22. Some of the route combinations have been bad where there's a bunch of guys in a small group in the middle of the field and there's nothing out wide. But then the question becomes, why? Is it because Matt Ryan can't hit the outside hash anymore? Which wasn't ever one of his strengths to begin with. He never came into the league with a huge arm. So it's like, oh, well, his arm is starting to go. Well, that shouldn't be that big a deal because he's never had a plus arm. He's had an NFL arm. Don't get me wrong. You don't throw for as many yards as he has without having an NFL arm, but he's never been a plus arm. Not, y'all saw Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck was a freak of an athlete. Watching him at the NFL Combine, if you had dropped him in with the linebackers, he would have been top 5. He never got the credit he deserved for being an athlete outside of Indianapolis for one reason or another that I won't get into. But he was a hell of an athlete, rocket arm, plus arm. The guy you're going to see this weekend has one of those plus arms. Justin Herbert can flat out sling it. So, the question on some of the route trees is I have to drop guys into the middle of the field because Ryan's not hitting anything but a 9 up the sideline on a lofted ball. So that could be part of it too, Drake.
Yeah, and it's been also release time. I know that there's been complaints about he's not getting the ball out quick enough, and you can easily get into even the best quarterback's head if you allow pressure right up the front. They've also had it right in his face where he can't get away, and you got it coming from the outside. The pocket at times has collapsed, but you also see him not really try to get the ball out. You'll see him look around and almost just shell up, ready to take a sack. So it's not just a matter of even how quick he gets it out or his arm strength. It's also a matter of he isn't acting even like he wants to play. He's very sad. It's almost a mental block now. And I think he got it as soon as he signed the contract.
When you get your ass kicked a little bit for a while. I mean, you're seeing the same thing with the Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson, 2 of the higher profile quarterback moves.
Yep.
And you're seeing similar results with poor offensive line play and then how that snowballs.
Oh, yeah.
In moving on from Matt Ryan again, I already said we do that once. What are your expectations for this weekend with Nick Foles? Do you think, can they go into LA and get an improbable win? The way things are rolling right now, how would you look at this game as, because I don't think the line is all that bad. It's only like 2.5 points, depending on where you look, where you feel like it should be more than that. Let me check my mybookie.ag.
Yeah. Okay. I was just looking right here.
I'm like, it should be higher. Maybe it was 6.5.
Plus 4.5.
I look at so many of them, I get them confused, but I didn't think it was. I thought it was closer than I was expecting. That's for sure. And if I'm looking now, I see Broncos, Rams. There we go. Chargers and Colts. It's 4.5. That's pretty tight for a team that is playing the way the Colts are, who are looking at a top 5 pick.
Maybe at the end of the day, I think maybe it's just that it's 2 things. It's that I think the Chargers have had 2 straight games where they've had to really work hard for points. Okay, they've had 2 narrow victories against, I think, the Titans and the Dolphins, and then for some reason there's been some.
Those are pretty good wins, Drake.
I know they're great. They're great wins. They're very tight. They're very tight wins. But I think that they're like discounting the offense for some reason because now that they've put Foles in, I think the line jumped like from, I don't remember if it was like +7, but it like jumped substantially. And I'm right there with you. I'm thinking, look, I'm not discounting Foles, but I'm discounting Foles. Like he hasn't played. He hasn't done anything. This is brand new for him in week 16, nonetheless, with a team that is beat down, probably mentally a little bit. So it'll be interesting. It's going to take having to get that committee, getting the ball going on the ground, Moss and Jackson. If they don't get the run game going, oh man, it's going to be a really tough day, I think, for Foles.
All right, moving on just a little bit. Sass Matt comes in a little bit. I think the defense is worn out. You can't expect anything out of the offense, and that's a recipe for disaster. And what are you playing for? You're as a Colts fan, when you're in the moment, you always want to win. But come Tuesday morning, when you're checking your draft spot, damn it, why did we win that game?
Yeah.
You're better off. When you incentivize teams to lose, you shouldn't be surprised when they do. The hypocrisy of the NFL and this whole Miami. He was telling people they should lose. You reward them for losing. Of course you're trying to lose. Now, there's a professional pride there and all that, blah, blah, blah. But the Chargers are playing for playoff seeds and that type of stuff. They're still playing for something where Jeff Saturday's coaching for something, and some of these guys are playing for jobs, but it's different. It's a vacation to LA on Christmas, and it's actually better for us if we lose. Well, guess what? Don't be surprised if you do. And on that note, two things real quick before we get out of here. We're about 20 minutes in. We'll go about 10 minutes, and this will probably take all of that up. I want to talk veteran quarterbacks because for me, Drake, your quarterback that starts next season is not on your roster. The starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts week 1 is not currently on the roster. I don't feel like that's a bold statement. It'll be the 7th in 7 years or something unbelievable.
Yeah, basically.
But I see the talk about Aaron Rodgers. I called my friend Bill Huber, who is a longtime Packers reporter before we came on, because I keep meaning to ask him this question. With a $100 million dead cap hit next year, why are people talking about Aaron Rodgers playing for anybody other than the Green Bay Packers? I don't get it. I don't get it. Matt Ryan had a record this year of a $40 million dead cap hit. You would have to do that 2 seasons in a row to take a 50-50 if you were the Green Bay Packers. I just don't see any way that's going to happen, Drake. Teach me. I'm willing to listen. Does he pay it back? Does he have it in $75 million in earnest and says, let's void the contract and I'll pay you back $75 million? No.
I don't think there's a chance in hell that Aaron Rodgers does not retire a Green Bay Packer. There's no way that they're going to take that kind of, or there's no way that's going to be acceptable by the Green Bay brass. I mean, they did everything. They had to pull so many strings to keep him there. They had to, let people go. Big playmakers that clearly change your entire team. So no way does Aaron Rodgers wear a Colts uniform at any point.
Not this year. I saw, someone, I think it was a CBS writer.
Yeah.
I think it was someone I used to work with. A kid was like, oh, Russell Wilson for Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, yes, the Broncos are going to take an $80 million cap hit next year. And the Packers are going to take $100 million. And then they won't be able to pay either guy because they only have $20 million of available cap space between them.
Yep.
After they field a team. I don't get it. Now, the talk about Jordan Love, there was an article, I think Andrew may have written it today on Horseshoe Huddle, talking about now he is also a betting favorite. Who isn't a favorite to land? I'm gonna hedge all these bets. I'm gonna bet against the Colts on all of them, and when they get one of them, I'll hit on the other 10.
There you go.
But Jordan Love is in his 4th year next year. So before the season opens, the Packers will have to decide if they're going to pick up his 5th-year option or not, which will be 8 figures. It'll be $10 million plus as a first-round draft pick. What are the chances that the Colts make a move for someone like Jordan Love, and what would it cost him? Because I'm not sending you my top 5 pick for him. Hell no.
Yeah, Jordan Love has shown little spurts here and there. I actually had mentioned this with Andrew. People still talk about the Kansas City game when they talk about Jordan Love. They still talk about how bad he struggled in his initial debut. That's the main storyline I'm hearing. Outside of now, another quarterback is linked to the Colts. Imagine that. I'm surprised Jim Harbaugh hasn't been, linked to also playing quarterback while being the coach. Everybody is now on this list. So I think that, maybe a second round pick. I'm trying to be very generous here. I mean, he has not shown really anything yet. So you're taking a big risk on a guy that was brought in my opinion, this is a joke, of course, but to piss off Aaron Rodgers. I have no idea why. Yeah.
So you don't do that with a first round pick. Maybe a second, but I don't get that one. So, for me, it seems like the shine has worn off a little bit on some of the quarterbacks coming out in this class. Now, I think if you keep an eye on things, if the Colts lose this weekend in LA, then they jump ahead into the top 5 over the winner of the Broncos-Rams game, unless they tie, and then things get weird. So if there is a winner, and I say, as improbable as that sounds, we've had ties, right, Indianapolis? We've had ties that it's possible, but likely if the Colts lose, it is very, very likely they move into the top 5. I think that would put one of the quarterbacks out of contention. I think at least one of them. My favorite would be Bryce Young. You're questioning his size and his frame, but my God. If you're measuring the it factor, he's got all of it. He's like a Patrick Mahomes light. He's not quite as big. He's not quite as strong, but he does everything when he's supposed to, how he's supposed to, gets it, and then he does some things that he's not supposed to be able to do. It just reminds me of how he plays like that. I think Bryce Young would be gone, but you might have a shot at CJ Stroud. Would you take him in the top 5? Would he be available? And then, as StatsMat says, Will Levis is the guy. And, there's mixed reviews on him as well. And you are seeing, if we want to talk about the floor versus ceiling debate from what Andrew put out, the highest ceiling out there might be Anthony Richardson. But he's probably also got the biggest bust factor next to him, who probably would have been better off going back to Florida for a year, would have made more money and would have gotten more starts, as opposed to, being a pick. But I think you're in line where you can get one of those 3 guys: Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. Have you looked at these guys at all, or your thoughts on what you might do in that spot?
Well, a lot of people have mentioned CJ Stroud can fold under pressure well. He's also probably the best pocket passer of those 3. Now, then you've got Richardson, who, as you said, he's an incredible playmaker, but you don't know where the floor lies. I mean, it could lie through the middle of the earth. But then you have Will Levis, who a lot of people have linked to the playing stylings of Brett Favre and Carson Wentz. And you've got this kind of, I think it was Andrew actually, he goes, you've got this really awesome vibe where he's just a gamer, and he's, always there to win, and he makes great plays. But then next, he's like 20, let's say he's like 20 for 25 on the day, goes out there, throws a mind-boggling interception. Next drive, tries to throw one of those Carson Wentz passes that where you flick it. So each one of those 3, my goodness, has their very own X factor. So it's really about what the Colts are wanting to do. Do they want to stretch the field? Do they want to run the ball more, present more play action? It's a very difficult decision to make.
And I always say you should be scheme neutral when you're talking about taking a player at this time, because schemes are going to change.
Yep.
It's like, I'm drafting it for this guy. He doesn't fit the scheme. Man, your offensive coordinator, if he's any good, is going to be a head coach somewhere else in a year and a half, and some guy else will come in and change. And if your head coach is your offensive coordinator, if it doesn't work out, he's going to be gone. But you're hoping to draft. If you're taking a guy in the top 5, yes, everybody wants the marriage to be for 10 to 12 years. That doesn't happen real often. So get the best guy. And it could turn out, if we want to get crazy about this, you go get the best player available. Say somebody gets stupid and they jump up and they take quarterbacks in the top 3, and you're sitting there with your choice of Will Anderson and Jalen Carter, and you're going, hell yeah.
Yeah,
I'll be bad next year, and I'll go get Caleb Williams from USC with the number 1 overall. But the problem is there's going to be a lot of tanking for Caleb the next year. But that's looking way down the line. The Colts are being linked with quarterbacks everywhere, and it's not going to stop because they've got an opening, and they got some money, and they got a high pick if they want to move into that spot. So that's not going to change in the near future, unless they make a trade in the offseason.
Very fair.
Speaking of which, let me get you on this one, Drake, and then we'll get out of here. There is a high-profile 25-year-old quarterback who hasn't signed a contract yet. The Baltimore Ravens have the ability to tag this guy until he turns 30 years old, but that would cost him, millions and millions, and he could and Lamar Jackson could threaten to sit out. But Benjamin Albright, a Denver Broncos insider, was asked, do you think about, could it happen? He's like, the longer and longer this drags out, the more likely I think it is that he forces a move. And that could happen. He goes, they're going to look for a team that's got the money, a team that's got the offense, and the availability. All of a sudden, the Atlanta Falcons are looking pretty good. Well, the Indianapolis Colts are a blank slate. And they've got the high pick. They've got the draft capital. They'd have the money. And you can build your offense as you want to if you made a deal, in the offseason. Why not the Colts?
Oh, wow. That is something that I have seen a lot on. And every time I have thought that's a dream. That's a dream. No way do the Colts achieve that. But, given the way that contract disputes have panned out, I mean, a lot of times those guys end up going to different teams. They end up getting out of where they're at and get out of a quote unquote, toxic situation. And we've seen this, the Ravens kind of wane a little bit, with injuries and stuff. So I think that the Colts would be a perfect fit. I think Jonathan Taylor mixed with, the running ability of a quarterback on that level, that is recipe for destruction for the defense, like facing them. I mean, that would just boggle the mind of any linebacker. What the hell do you even do in that situation? So
it's going to cost you 3 first-round picks to pull something like that off. The Deshaun
Fair.
Watson deal is a pretty good benchmark for doing something like this. But if you say I'm picking number 5, and if I said I'm going to trade you Will Levis and 2 first-round picks, then it doesn't quite sound as bad. As 3 first-round picks. Like, well, Will Levis, what has he done? Or Lamar Jackson, and 2 first-round picks for a guy I'm hoping to have for the next decade. Then it doesn't sound too bad. Final question before we get out of here. We're at 30. We're going to call it a night here shortly. Is will Ballard even want his stamp with a franchise quarterback, considering the state of the franchise of which he's a chief architect? Or does he walk? No one walks. Fire me. Pay me to leave. But I'm going to stick around until you fire me. No one just leaves. No one walks.
Yeah.
They get there, they stick around, and they get their $7 million times however many years left I have on my contract, because their contracts are guaranteed, not the guys out there that are getting pulled off on stretchers and carts. That's changing a little bit, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But the coaches and the administrators and executives, their contracts are guaranteed. So no one walks. How long will he be here? And I'm going to get you on that one real quick. What's the likelihood that Chris Ballard is there come this next draft?
Oh, I think he's. I know me and Andrew has said that he does not think that he's going to be there. I personally do. I think that Jim Irsay is going to keep him around.
There's still plenty of doubt then.
Oh yeah, I think he's going to stick.
If you two are split, then there's enough doubt.
Very fair.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think his seat's got to be plenty warm. He's done some good things. The salary cap has been good. The drafting's been okay. StatsMat saying 60-40 comes back. So yeah, there's definitely some doubt there.
That's a good one. Yeah.
But yeah, I think again, the Colts are going to be linked with every quarterback under the sun. And maybe the biggest prize out there this offseason isn't Bryce Young, isn't CJ Stroud, isn't Aaron Rodgers. Get that out of your minds, folks. He's got a $100 million dead cap hit.
Thank you.
You can't pay that back and then leave and have someone else pay him a $75 million signing bonus, because that's circumventing the cap. That's against the rules. So no way this year. And then we'll see what happens, and somehow it'll happen. And I'll be wrong for using an absolute. But the big prize out there could be Lamar Jackson, and 3 first-round picks and a boatload of money might be worth it.
Absolutely. I want to agree with that. That's one heck of a acquisition. If the Colts could pull that off, well, that would pretty much flip their offseason on its head. That's not what anybody's expecting to happen. Be pretty cool.
All right. Drake, your internet is starting to say it's time to get out of here, so I think it's time for us to get out of here.
Sure.
I want to thank everybody. Stats Matt, appreciate you being here. Andrew, thanks for letting me sit in for you tonight. Tim coming in, and Taryn coming in real quick to get us out of here on YouTube. Everybody, appreciate the comments and everything. It makes the chat so much more fun.
Agreed.
He says, I don't think he's going anywhere yet. Anything goes right now with the state of the team, but who would be the replacement? There's guys. There will be a lineup of 12 guys. As an administrator, my job is to be able to replace you. Every general manager has a list of 10 guys for every position and every staff member of who he's calling. If my quarterback goes down, if my assistant coach is gone, all of those things, that's what they do. So that wouldn't be a problem. This was the Horseshoe Huddle podcast. And let me drop this in here for everybody here real quick. If if you want to check out more of my stuff on there, you can find me on YouTube. And some of y'all are actually watching this on YouTube. I put my link to my YouTube channel in the chat. I do a ton of Senior Bowl stuff and highlights, Colts videos. So you may have seen my stuff and not known it was my stuff. So check it out. Go over there. Follow Drake Wally at DWalster Drake on Twitter. I prefer the YouTube because YouTube actually writes you checks where Twitter does not. So on that note, Drake, thanks for having me in here. I really appreciate it. Hope to do it again sometime. And to the rest of y'all, we'll see you next time.
Have a good night.